Hola, hola. My name is Ramon, cosmetic chemist, esthetician, opinion haver of skincare. I'm here with a very special guest.
Hey everyone, my name is Leah Yu. I'm a beauty content creator here on YouTube and also the founder of Crave Beauty.
We're in a very different setup. I'm currently in New York with Leah, and you're gonna hear a lot of noise, a lot of background noise. We're gonna deal with it today. But first of all, so honored to have you on because Leah, I've watched Leah's content for a year. She's a big reason why I chose to pursue this career in the first place. Watching your sunscreen, skincare content. So very full circle. I did a video for her channel as well. I'll have that link down below so you can go watch that. We talked sunscreen, like our favorite sunscreens of the year. But I kind of wanted to talk to Leah while she was here, have this be very like casual podcast style, just because obviously Leah is a skincare beauty consumer. Leah is a skincare brand founder. And I just think we're in a very interesting space right now in like the beauty industry. We're just gonna talk beauty, skincare, things we love and things we don't.
Yeah. I mean, there's nowadays a lot of influencer-founded brands we see on this platform and also in all the major retailers too, which is a great thing and a bad thing. There are so many celebrities jumping on to this space just with the pure, I guess, motivation of selling to a bigger buyer.
That's actually one of the main points I wanted to bring up, because you starting Crave, first of all, that made sense. You were someone who was like very deep into, I love skincare, I love beauty, I love all these things. I want to start a brand, and like Crave started with like a very specific intention and a very specific motive. Something that I personally have had like a lot of issue with recently, I guess, is like you see a lot of like tech finance people that they're like, you know what, there's a lot of money right now in cosmetics. Let me start this brand, launch a very redundant, very meaningless brand, pump so much money into it. But it's like, it's just more noise in the space.
Yeah, and they don't really care about the customers that they're selling their products to. And there are so many K-beauty brands that are so popular in the stateside. The owners don't give a damn about their customers. Like they're coming from a pure business reason into the space with the pure motivation of selling the company to like Estee Lauders of the world and just making that big fat check at the end of the day.
Which I'm used to that here, but actually that's a perspective I don't have. Talk more about that.
Yeah, so well, in Korea, where I started my beauty career from, there's definitely a lot of noise in the K-beauty space. Like K-beauty is trending worldwide and there is money in this industry. And a lot of people in Korea recognize that there are bigger market outside Korea. So a lot of the times when, you know, Chinese tourists would come to Korea to literally bring like all their suitcases as much as possible to wipe out the entire shelf in like Olive Young or department stores. That was kind of like the prime day of beauty, where it really allowed a lot of just like randos to come into the beauty industry to just make a quick buck. And it was like so easy to do that. Many popular names.
We're not going to say them right now.
Not going to say them. That I don't necessarily agree with the owner's philosophy or of running the company, and also just the reason why they exist. And I think that's why we hear or we see so much noise in the industry. Like we're seeing this like fast product launch cycle coming from the West and the East, and I think it's just really confusing a lot of consumers, and especially for those who have, you know, skin conditions like acne or eczema or someone with skin barrier damage. You want to simplify your routine, but the industry is telling you to apply more and more and more, and you need to rely on the products in order to have that perfect glass skin, when sometimes like the best thing to do is like taking a break from the 10-step skincare routine that you have and see like what your skin is saying and really being in tune with that. Kind of similar to how we eat. Like there's so many diet culture, so many, you know, like some say keto diet is good, some say like paleo diet is like the best thing to do for your health. But at the end of the day, like intuitive eating is something that is so good for your body, because everyone's stomach is different, everyone's body is so different. You process food differently. Like you would eat something that I cannot really eat and get irritated or allergic to. So I think that's similar to skincare, where skincare should be more intuitive and more intentional. And, you know, like we want to be more in tune with what our skin is saying versus what the influencers are saying or what the sales staffs are trying to sell you.
You don't need every viral product.
No, not at all.
In regards to you saying that they launch with the intent to sell, is the intent to go international, global with like an Estee like you mentioned, or even like stay internal within like
Korea
Amore
well?
Pacific?
Yeah.
Like those, what are the big umbrellas there? It's like Samsung. Amore.
Amore Pacific, LG has a huge beauty arm that owns, what would be a popular brand here? That owns a lot of brands too. That LG is actually the biggest right now in Korea. Bigger than Amore Pacific. And then there's Shinsegae, which is like a department store brand or like a conglomerate. Yeah, there's also like mid-sized mini conglomerates too.
That's the biggest shock, not the biggest, that was a big surprise to me, is going to, when I was in Seoul and realizing like, I see beauty on such a Western scale. And we know like the Estes, Shiseidos, L'Oreal's, but like understanding what that market over there looks like. And even still like Amore Pacific, that's an international brand at this point. When you have something like a Dr. Jart, they're under Estee. But yeah, understanding like that separation, but how those even compare to each other.
Yeah, and 3CE.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's also under L'Oreal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of Korean brands are getting acquired by just like international conglomerates. So I think there's definitely money there from a lot of people from a business perspective, but yeah, from the consumer perspective, it can definitely be like, what are all these brands? Like, where do I even start to build my skincare routine? And who do I trust and who do I listen to? I think it's a big thing.
And then coming back to, we're talking celebrity brands, influencer brands. What's your perspective on that? Because I think I'm very against what everyone else thinks about them. I actually don't mind most of them. I think some of them are very, very fun. And there's actually a few I'm like, oh, they actually launched some really fun, cool products. But like overall, like what's your opinion on like the celebrity brand specifically?
I think you can easily see like which celebrity came out with a brand with like a real purpose. So I think the prime example is Hailey Bieber's Rhode, where she is trying to make sure her mission is to make like one of everything that is really good. So she has like a very tight portfolio of products. Like she's not launching all products at once. And she is trying to involve dermatologists, skincare experts, even skincare influencers in the product development phase, so that she's also making a product that is for a specific target audience and that is providing a real solution. So I see that from like Hailey Bieber's post where she's like actually really involved and engaged and wanting Rhode to mean something to someone. And whereas there are other brands where it basically feels like, you know, back in the 2000s, we would see so many perfume brands that has like a celebrity name on it, even though they probably had never done anything in the product development process, but by labeling their celebrity name would hopefully, you know, sell the product on shelves, and hopefully someone who aspires to be that celebrity, whether that's from a skin status or, you know, just like lifestyle perspective. I think those brands, I'm not sure how long they would last. I think that's my perspective. And I think it can be also, you know, discouraging to a lot of indie beauty brand founders who are here to genuinely serve a purpose, here to like genuinely serve a specific demographic, and who doesn't have the reach of a celebrity. You're fighting with the noise and the power and the social media reach that they have versus from someone who is starting from complete like blank canvas. You don't have any followers on socials. It definitely gives a unfair advantage.
With a celebrity brand, you just have that name front and center. What were some of the most random ones? Brad Pitt launched a skincare line, and it wasn't cheap either. That's the other part. It's like, who's buying this? John Legend. Idris Elba launched his line with his wife, and it was like an odd mix of like mental health, but also skincare.
Oh.
But then I'm like, you have Keys Soul Care, which I actually liked a lot. And it was a lot of those same elements together. Fenty.
Yeah.
We all know I love Fenty. But no, I think your point about Rhode is one of my favorite ones. I think they're very simple, but like they're really fun products, really, really cool textures. They went in a really good direction. And I feel like to some degree, Hailey is actually very present in a lot of the stuff that happens with Rhode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think she's very involved in the skincare community online. So I think she definitely feels more genuine compared to any other celebrity brands.
It's one thing to start the brand and be like, I'm so-and-so, just buy the product. But it's another thing to like be really involved in like, I'm so-and-so. Like I think that's a big part of why like Rare did really well. Selena actually, like, especially from an influencer's perspective, who have gotten the opportunity to like sit in on like Rare meetings, Selena's like always present in some degree of showing off the product. But also Selena just like, I think is very involved in like a lot of aspects of her career. That sounds really dumb to say, like, of course she is. But like her cooking show, she's actively there. She's like, I'm cooking, but I'm having someone else who's with me and speaking through things. She's an actor. She has music.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the beauty part, it's interesting to see like she's involved in it.
Yeah.
Rihanna for a while was also involved as well. Every new launch, she would do something big to like market that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think nowadays, another thing that I'm seeing a lot in the industry is how many small brands are struggling to survive in this tough market. And there are, behind the scenes, like there are a lot of beauty brands, founders that are struggling to raise money. And, since coming out of COVID, in the US, we're dealing with inflation and a possible recession that we've been talking about for the past 2 years.
A long time, yeah.
Yeah, a long time. And now that the economy is a bit unstable and shaky, VCs and investors are not willing to open their wallet to fund these brands. But for beauty brands who are already out there and who needs to run and who needs like money to run and do advertising, increase brand awareness, fund influencers to do marketing campaigns, they are running out of cash. So a lot of brands are either getting debt financing or loans as like a last resort with really high interest rates. And a lot of them are closing down silently, or they're selling their company at a really low valuation, at almost like a bargain. So I definitely have so much sympathy and empathy for those founders, like indie beauty brand founders, for navigating this kind of unstable and uncertain economy. It's very rough and tough. So that's why I love featuring products in my videos who are like owned by independent brand founders who's not part of the conglomerates.
I'm kind of using that to kind of segue into the next topic. Something that I get a lot of questions about, because I'm a chemist, I put that front and center in the content. People are like, I want to start my own brand, I'm looking to start my own skincare line or makeup line or whatever. You started Crave from like the ground up. And Crave was really something that piggybacked off of your presence online. But for someone looking to start a brand, what is your advice? What is the Leah You book of step 1, step 2, step 3?
Yeah, I think step 1 is fundamentally having like a very clear purpose. And this kind of sounds like super abstract, but it will be almost like a guiding compass to navigate like whether you should raise money in the beginning or should you raise from your friends and family, and all sorts of decisions in the business. I think starts from having a very, very crystal clear North Star of why you want to exist in this very crowded, very saturated marketplace, because it is a tough scene. Like, not gonna lie, not every beauty brand makes it out there. I think, in the startups, like there's a saying, in year 3 of startup, 90% of the startups fail. And I think that's similar to a lot of consumer products and beauty brands who come out to the market that was so hot or like that made a splash that you don't see 3 years down the road. So I think having a very, very clear motivation of I need to exist to serve a specific demographic. For us, it was more about trying to press reset on this maximalist and hyper consumeristic beauty industry to say, no, listen to your skin and let's just focus on our skin barrier, apply gentle hydrating product, apply fewer product, less is more. I think that's something that I really thought that the industry needed, because the industry is going into a direction where more is more, like apply this 10-step skincare routine and you're gonna have glass skin. So I think just having that very clear mission really helped me to stay focused on my lane and not be distracted too much by how other brands are running, how other influencers are running their companies too. So I guess that would be my step 1. And then step 2, once you have that defined brand mission and the purpose, I think it's easier for you to brainstorm your very first child, your product that you're going to launch with. And then once you have a very clear product idea, which hopefully is a solution to someone's problem, and I think then from trade shows, suppliers, I think the easiest way to start your brand or start a formulation or product development would be just going into a bunch of trade shows. So in New York, there's Makeup in New York happening within a couple of days. For raw materials, there's something called In Cosmetics, where you can really view the entire up and coming innovations and ingredients that are hot.
Yeah, there's Cosmoprof. And in Cosmetics and Cosmoprof, they have international versions. So the main ones happen in Europe, There's also a North American version. And actually for Cosmoprof, there's Vegas, there's Miami. But basically, Cosmoprof is a big place to go to if you're looking for a contract manufacturer. So you have an idea, you need someone to make the products. And that can be white labeling and custom formulations. Distributor, so let's say you have your product, but you need to like just get it out there. Packaging, like all the things you can imagine, even some individual like ingredient suppliers as well, but not as many. And that's for any type of beauty brand. Cosmoprof had like nail, hair, like tools, like everything. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, and then I think in the process of product development, once you nail down the either formulator or if you have a chemist in-house, that would be a great ideal situation. If you don't, contract manufacturers can help you with the formulation, and then you develop a product through them. And I think one key thing is to do as many focus groups as possible so that you're sure that this product will truly stand out from an experiential standpoint, sensorial, efficacy, and would people actually buy this ultimately? And I think having a group of friends in your network that are willing to provide like actual critical feedback that you need to hear is so fundamental, because oftentimes, like, you know, if you're a friend of someone, you don't want to hurt their ego. So if a sunscreen is pilling and you're not really saying that out loud to them, you're doing a disservice, because then like thousands of customers would find out, return the sunscreen because it's pilling or it's not sitting well on top of their skin. So I think having that really like honest group of friends and network would be really, really, really great. Last but not least would be distribution. So whether you want to sell it through your own website, your direct to consumer, or Amazon, like online marketplaces, or go into a big box beauty retailer. So these are Sephora, Ultas of the world. And then, you know, there's also national mass retailers like Target, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. So I think, yeah, determining where your brand is going to sit in which category in the whole like beauty market context really does help, so that you can then pitch to those retailers and pitch to the distributors, and you go from there. So then you launch, and I guess it comes down to then how are you going to advertise your product? And I think having a social media platform that is established definitely helps. But if you don't, I think you start from having influencers try the products first.
Yeah, and I mean, that becomes where we come into play as content creators, where it's like, for example, I remember being very fresh to the scene, like hundreds of followers maybe, generously, and like Beauty of Joseon was reaching out. They were just starting out as a company as well. Stratia, who else? Naturium, they actually launched right after we did. And it's like, I recently was at Cosmoprof North America in Vegas and had a lot of brand owners be like, how do I start talking to influencers? And it's like, look at people in your niche, first of all. You can't just go to random people who they don't make sense with your brand, because they can't speak to your product, but also their audience probably won't be interested in what you are offering. Like, for example, I had a lot of people coming up to me being like, our products are non-toxic, clean. And I was like, you're barking up the wrong tree. But then other people, like there's one girl, oh my God, she was so stunning. This girl sat in front of me with the most beautiful curly hair. And I was like, what do you use? And she's like, oh, it's my own product, my own brand. And then she pulls out her product. And I was like, that is effective marketing right there.
Wow.
And plus she's Latina, she's Mexican. So we like hit it off. But I'm like, that's how you do it. You want to sell your product effectively just in your own right. But then also she came to me, she knows my platform's really big on like promoting like women of color owned businesses, basically, that kind of brand identity. I love the products too.
What's the brand?
It's called Vida Bars, like Vida, like life, like VIDA. Just like the single mom from Oklahoma.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, anyways, shameless, not self-plug.
Yeah, I love that.
But yeah, it's like, look at who you're asking to speak to your product and make sure it makes sense with who your brand is or like what your brand ethos is.
Yeah, I think that's a smart way to go about it, because sometimes people who don't have marketing experience really have no clue on how to get their brand out there in the world to be known. So yeah, I think that's a really good advice.
Something I've noticed a lot of people do is you have the brains behind the product, and then you have a business focused partner. And like, for example, like I have no business like mentality or like strategy in my head. I can make a product. I can look at a market and be like, there's a hole for this specific product. I think it needs to get made, or I see the specific trends. Here's what I'd want to do with that. when it comes to the whole operational end of things, like I could never imagine that. So like we have our friend Alex from Educated Mess, her business partner Catherine, brilliant, organized, efficient, and that dynamic works so well. So if you're someone who like, I have this vision, this idea for a product, but I don't know how to get it out there, find someone who can make that dream a reality and work with you and like see your vision as well.
Yeah, I think having that awareness is so important, because otherwise if you're trying to do it all, even though you're not really competent in the other areas of the business, sometimes founders have to just make sure that, you know, all the business pieces are in their control. But I think that's when everything kind of falls apart, where you can focus your time and energy into what brings the most value to the company by doing product development, being creative, and really having a strong pulse on the market, which is kind of like our category of people, and really delegating and finding the right person on the other side of the spectrum of who likes executing my vision, who likes to actually, you know, put the wheels to the skeleton of this vehicle and make it run and make it actually like a vehicle. So I think that's definitely key, like having self-awareness and know that where you
shine and where you shine and where you really need that support. I feel like the big three pillars of like a successful brand and brand launch is someone making an interesting product, someone who's able to get that story and that voice out, so a marketing person, and then the person who's able to just get everything on the back end organized, the logistics, the operations, the distribution.
Your finances.
Yeah, and so I feel like really good brands have someone, especially in the operations field, that just is very meticulous.
And
that's where I'm not.
I'm not either.
Again, I just think about this like in a perspective of, again, there's a lot going on, and I feel like a big issue I see, and like bless their souls, but I see these people with like very ambitious goals, but they're launching very redundant products onto this market, or something where I'm just like, are you like decanted and bottled like canola oil? With like,
why would someone apply canola oil
for your hair? I don't know. I'm just like, I see the intent, like entrepreneurial spirit, but it's just like, what was the intent of this like product? For example, for Crave, it was the press reset, like really minimizing, simplifying the routine, breaking through the noise of like getting people to go back to the basics. You have some brands that do very well with a very saturated portfolio, but even with that, they're bringing something interesting to the product. For example, like Naturium's got like fat SKU library, a catalog. But I mean, they're very mindful of like, you know what, let's kind of look at things again, pull some stuff from the market that's just not doing it, or that we have redundancy in. Their products are at a really good price point. And their textures are very, very nice. And so it's like, I feel like my biggest feedback from my end is like, don't give me something I have 15 other versions of already. What do you see right now is like the big, like, I know we talked about recession and all that, like that is actually very real. We see brands talking about like, hey guys, we're so sorry. We have to raise prices like $2 per product because we have like raw materials are really expensive now.
And the labor costs.
And packaging is so expensive now. So like prices are going up. There are still some beauty categories that are actually doing very good right now. What do you see those categories being?
I don't know. Yeah, because from all the things that I'm reading, there's like a recent article that I read about like the lipstick effect is not, it's not working anymore. The lipstick effect is that when there's a time of economic hardship, a lot of people, definitely reduce their spending on going out or drinking with friends, but there's like one thing that they would not compromise on spending is lipstick. So lipstick effect means that beauty brands or like beauty industry is very resilient from recession because people want small luxury. People want to feel good, at least with that $20 purchase of a lipstick to make them feel better in this like tough economy. So that's lipstick effect, but that has been proved in many years and many different decades. But this year, with this kind of current economy, there was a saying that it's not working. Like the beauty industry is like downsizing. There were a lot of forecasts of sales that are being reduced now. The market is very tough. So that's what I see. So I'm not sure what your view is on that, which category is selling well.
Selling well is a different story for me. My perspective is more so I see what brands are launching, either like what existing brands are pushing out or what brands themselves are coming to the market now as new brands, as an influencer. And that is through my lens of like PR basically. And for a backstory on this, like PD for a product from inception to launch usually takes minimum, like for great, like you went through a CM with an existing base product, minimum 6 months. And I feel like everyone launched hair in the same year. Obviously like Rihanna and Beyonce.
Yeah.
But like hair was a really big push in the last, I think, calendar
Blake.
year. Blake Lively, although I hear that. The packaging's interesting on that one. But like, yeah, it's like these celebrities specifically, I don't understand why, all launched hair. But then on the indie level, you have ethnic and Black owned hair companies like Shaz and Kicks at Sephora.
Bread Beauty.
Bread, I love Bread.
Yeah.
Um,
Ceremonia.
Ooh, Ceremonia. I actually talk about them all the time.
Yeah.
I love their products. But yeah, like hair was a big push this last year.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, I think hair care have definitely grown through COVID, right? Because people were spending more time in self-care. They're like, oh, what is this like protein something from Olaplex or like creatine? So I think COVID really made people more aware of like where to take care of more.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a big push on social media as well, like people talking about like porosity and like all these different.
What is porosity?
It's like how like essentially like how absorbent your hair is, which can like in
your
some sense.
shaft of your hair is like lifted.
My understanding is you have essentially the shingles that are on the shaft of the hair. To some degree, they're lifted and allowing hair to or water to get into it, which you don't want water in your hair shafts. Porosity is essentially a measure of how absorbent the hair is.
How do you make your hair less absorbent of water?
Again, based off the understanding of what I think porosity is, I haven't looked into it, so I could be very wrong. It's just you want something that's gonna like help essentially smooth out. So like an oil, a conditioner, something like that.
I had a question related to that. I was shopping for hair conditioner, and you know how a lot of hair conditioners have dimethicone or like silicone ingredients to like really smoothen everything out. Is that a good?
Yes.
Okay, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Or like when you're shopping for conditioner, like what should I look out for in terms of ingredient list or what have you?
I mean, the most basic things you want, like as dumb as it sounds, a conditioning agent. And what a conditioner does, your hair and your skin are negatively charged. Conditioners feature something called cationic surfactants. That means positively charged. And those are attracted to the negative charges of the hair. And they act like essentially a little bit of a shield on the hair as a result. And that can be things like silicone that coat the hair, oils. I feel like dimethicone silicones get a lot of bad rep, but they're like a really beneficial hair ingredient. And you're focusing those mostly on the ends of the hair. I think people focus a lot of them on the scalp.
Yeah.
And that's where you don't really want those.
Moving on to the hair care category, I had a question. So, there's a lot of beauty brands that are launching just existing library formulas, white labeling them basically. Do you have any opinions on that? Because I do.
I mean, and I think you have a very specific opinion that's going to actually branch off of what I'm going to say right now, but we saw it a lot in K-Beauty. You go to a CM, and the big one was Colmar for sunscreens. And basically they're like, hey, we have this. In the case of sunscreen, it's like, we have this tested at this. You can modify X percentage of the formula, and it's essentially a unique one for you, but for the most part, it is what it is. And we see that a lot in skincare and makeup, especially. Like you can, for these conventions, you can go to a manufacturer and they're like, we already have this existing formula. You can just slap your name on it and sell it as is. I want more for the industry because again, if they already have created this and other people can do the same thing you're doing by just slapping their name on the already existing product, you're just adding to the noise. You're not doing anything innovative, but it's available.
I think white labeling, I'm against it purely because like that's the reason why we see so many redundant products, to your point. And it adds to the noise. And if you especially shop at Olive Young in Korea, in the sunscreen aisle, or even in like, you want a mugwort toner, there's like 20 different kinds that are basically 90% identical. And I think that's adding to a lot of overwhelm and almost like fatigue to the customers where they want to choose the right thing, but then there's like 20 different options for the same looking kind of ingredient list. Like, you don't know then how to make a decision for yourself. So I think it's cool that, a lot of these like contract manufacturers come up with innovations and they get picked up by cool brands, but I think you can be more creative with it if you are a brand owner.
And I will say, this is kind of like industry tea, even for like the big umbrella conglomerates that happens within their scope. I'm not gonna say which one, but one of like the really, really big ones from France, they basically can take formulas from like existing brands and just give it to like newer brands, and they won't change anything to the formula. It's just it belonged to A brand before, now it belongs to B brand in this format. And I mean, we know for like, for example, like a L'Oreal, I'm not talking about, they will develop a technology and then shop that to each of their subsidiaries, and each of them might alter the formula in some degree, but then for like another similar umbrella conglomerate, they literally just, well, this formula was under this brand already a few years back, let's just relaunch it under this brand, see what happens.
Yeah, and then I think that's why we see a lot of similar formulas under the same parent company from like high to low end. I think that's an interesting thing when a lot of these conglomerates like share the existing raw materials or existing kind of base formula. I think to me, it kind of adds like a layer of curiosity of like playing the detective work of like, oh, like La Mer has this, would this mass brand also have the same kind of raw material or technology?
A really good example of this is under L'Oreal, I mentioned, the Lancôme Tanti Dol, as well as the L'Oreal True Match. They both use a very similar pigment system that incorporates, and L'Oreal's very upfront about this, that feature blue and green pigments so that their foundation undertones are like a lot more realistic across the wide spectrum of things. But yeah, I don't know which launched it first. I think it might have been Tanti Dol, Lancôme, but then L'Oreal True Match launched it, and that's part of the L'Oreal's like marketing campaign.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that's really cool innovation, but Lancôme Tanti Dol and L'Oreal True Match are very different foundations.
And then if you were to launch your own brand, what is a product that you would launch with? Or is this confidential?
It's confidential, but I feel like Glow by Ramon is known for 3 very specific things. The first launch would just make so much sense with that. But then I think people come up to me, they're like, oh, you're going to do skincare, you're going to do skincare. I love beauty, period. And that's been something I've built this entire platform off of. And people know me for skincare and sun care. But I just love beauty. And so I don't want to just pigeonhole myself into only skincare. And I have my experience as a chemist. I have all my connections in the industry now. So it's like, I can do so much and I want to do a lot.
Yeah.
I have to do something that's true to myself and very on brand with me. And I have like so many things I want to do, even just outside of like the way Crave has the press reset, like hashtag. And that's like so much of what the brand's ethics are. For me, like I have so many things I want to do to like give back. Yeah.
And then you want to serve an underserved category or like people who are wanting a certain solution but haven't met the right solution yet.
Correct. And I mean, like you have so many like, again, like Latinx owned brands and they're doing really cool things. You have so many like queer owned brands. So in that regard, I'm not like this unique feature in the industry, but I am a chemist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just see so many holes where it's like going back to celebrity brands. I talked about this in content where, remember Kim K launched her like, with the SKKN line or whatever.
Yes.
And I was like, girl.
It's still around.
It still is. I don't know who's buying it. I don't know who's talking about it, but it's still around. I checked the website a couple weeks back. But I remember basically everyone was like, it's almost exact same products that Kylie Skin launched. Not formulaically, but like you had a very simple cleanser, scrubs, like very simple serums. And I'm like, you are Kim Kardashian, known for beauty and all these things, like very smooth skin. I know you had the backing for this financially. You could have invested a lot of money in some really innovative formulas. And that's where I see like celebrity skincare lines just like missing the mark, because I'm like, you have a name and the money to do a lot of really cool things. And you're just launching what every other celebrity's launched. And then going back to your point about indie brands, some of them are really approaching this really innovatively, but they don't have the marketing and backing to get that voice out. At Cosmoprof, there was a brand called Nine Glow. I believe it's Latino owned.
I've heard of it.
But I walked by the booth and I saw, it was this little tiny booth, and I saw the product and I saw the Inky, and I looked at it and I was like, just off the Inky, I'm like, this product is amazing. Didn't try it. Found out another social media chemist, Kenna Whitnell, she was the one who did the formula for them. You know Kenna?
Yeah.
Kenna did that for them.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. To see chemists doing the thing and like coming up with really cool products. But the girl that launched the brand, I think her name is Natalie, she had this vision and this idea and this intent for this product. And so those two worlds just collided beautifully. And it's called a pre-workout serum. It's a really cool anti-pollution serum. But just off the like main actives alone, I was like, oh, this is a really cool product.
Interesting.
But she's a very indie brand.
So is Kenna kind of upfront with the brand as almost like a face of the brand, or
no? I literally looked at the pocket, I'm like, this ingredient, this looks amazing. Who did this for you? Because I'm like, you're not a chemist. She's like, oh, it's this chemist. Her name is Kenna. And I was like, Kenna Whitnell? And she's like, yeah. Oh, because I was like, oh, I don't see, they had vitamin C on there. I'm like, I don't see the vitamin C on the actual, what is it? She's like, oh, let me ask the chemist. So that was how I found out. But Kenna's not like the front and center for the brand, which I think a lot more brands actually should do. You need to get some of the celebrities off the camera and put the chemists who make the products front and center.
Yeah.
But if you've ever met a chemist, they're not the most socially inclined individuals.
What about derm-owned brands?
A lot of people have issues with these. I think because doctors are doctors, so already there's that perceived this is a doctor.
Yeah.
And then some of the language that gets used.
Yeah.
It really breaks that ethical line of like a cosmetic versus a drug.
It's like psoriasis friendly or
Melasma friendly.
melasma friendly. Yeah.
A cosmetic is something that can basically only do something on a more superficial level. And like language wise, you just have to say improves the look of, the appearance of, to keep it very like visual, because once you start making claims about like an actual impact on a biological system, so like
Reduce acne.
Like actually fade pigmentation instead of fade the appearance of pigmentation. Melasma is a medical condition. Like those kinds of words you have to be very careful about in this world because it's actually illegal. It's one of those laws where it's like it's speeding, so it's like you're not killing someone, but it's not. It's against the law.
Speeding, yeah, I like that analogy.
But derms, because they are derms, there's already this kind of like gray area of like perception, and then sometimes the language used is also very. I don't got an issue with it, but again, do something interesting.
Yeah.
Dr. Sam Bunting, actually, she's a British derm. I liked a lot of her products. I haven't tried Shireen Idris's line yet. I haven't tried Remedy Skin, that's Dr. Shaw's. I haven't tried those yet. But again, they're doctors, to some extent like a chemist. Like we know what we want to see in a product, and they actually have like the name and the money to back a product up. And they're using that in the greater good of things. Like they're actually launching something more or less interesting.
So in the entire context of beauty and beauty landscape, beauty industry, what is fun to you right now?
I mean, it's a very complicated thing because I'm like, oh, what could it be? For me, and something I've just really based my content platform off of is you can get a product that works well, but you can also just get a product that feels good and it's fun to use. Those worlds can exist together as well. And I hate people being like, no, it has to be black or white. Like Glow Recipe, for example. That's why I ride for Glow Recipe so hard, because their products are just fun.
Yeah, fun.
For me, it's a really cool, fun, sensorial, textural experience. It's a good example of that. I mean, I really like Experiment's Buffer Jelly. It's like really fun, like sticky, like jelly, but it's like conceptually, it's 20% glycerin, and glycerin has all these amazing benefits therapeutically for skin that someone's really taking advantage of that. But also just like what's new concepts in the beauty space that no one else is really doing, and what's a good example of that? I'm trying to think now.
I'm trying to think now too.
So K18 hair brand, chelators are specific ingredients that essentially latch onto these extra metal ions that are in like water, for example, and they grab them so they don't impact. Usually it's used in formulations to not affect the overall formula, but in the concept of K18, it grabs those metal ions so they don't impact the hair.
Interesting.
And so like in areas that have hard water, that's super beneficial. But yeah, like anti-pollution, the concepts around it are so simple. And like the impact of pollution on skin and hair is actually like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't really think about that in the stateside, but when I was living in Korea, you know, the fine dust issue is so real. And this kind of expands to China and neighboring countries too, where pollution is an actual thing that you feel on a like physical level every single day that you get concerned about. That's why still like post-COVID, a lot of people in Asia would still, you know, mask up because of this pollution issue. So I think having an innovation in that anti-pollution category would be something that would be very well received in the Asian market compared to here. I don't think there's like an urgency here yet.
I agree, because again, not everyone's capitalizing off of it. But I think there's also, you have to be careful around the language used when talking about it. I think that might be why brands are a little bit more reluctant. Ooh, some minor tea. Something you just reminded me of though that I just thought of is, especially when you're in a mass market kind of environment, the retailer themselves have a lot of influence as to what brands launch.
Totally.
And they seed out the same idea to like a lot of their brands. And that's why you see a lot of redundant launches within the same retail space, which also irritates me because I'm like, I understand they're already within your wall. So like anything that happens is going to financially benefit you. But I'm also like, wouldn't you want to differentiate that a little bit? So you don't have like 7 brands launching the exact same product.
Yeah. I think Bakuchiol was really big.
Like, every brand launched like a hybrid or mineral sunscreen SPF 30 within the same year.
Basically what they do is they give out like huge promotion calendars for the following year, and then it's basically the brands opting in to be part of that promotion so that they can be, you know, once you walk into the Sephora door, there's like little stands, right? then like you get featured in the sunscreen category. That's more brand awareness. So it's kind of like going both sides, saying like, hey, next year, like Q1's big push is going to be, lip oil. Then you'll see a lot of lip oils. One thing I found it very fascinating in the Korean market is the PDRN ingredient.
Yeah, really hot right now.
Yeah, so have you done any salmon facials?
Not a facial, but I got the salmon DNA injections.
That's the red urine. Did you do it in Korea?
No, I did it in London.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
How was your experience?
Good. I liked it. I went with Susan. I was going to get filler, but the doctor was like, get this instead. It's
Skin booster.
basically, I have to do 3 rounds total. I've only done 2.
Wow.
And apparently, I mean, I didn't find it to be horribly painful, but like people who do it, they're like, it's so painful.
It looks horrifying.
Well, they stick the needle like all the way down here and it goes all the way
like
up.
50 or like 100 of them.
Yeah, I know, like, I've seen influencers like do it, like the superficial one all over.
Wow. Okay, so I've never done it. It is huge in Korea, as you know. And, salmon, DNA injection is coming from salmon sperm. So I think that's where like a lot of controversies.
Which, side note, the doctor who did mine, she's like, it's not actually salmon sperm. We like biosynthesize it in the lab.
That's amazing. There's a lot of biosynthesized lab-grown PDRN ingredients, but in the cosmetic space, there are still predominantly
like
salmon sperm derived PDRN. This is supposed to help with increasing collagen production, obviously, and also trying to even out your skin tone and texture in general. So it was huge in Korea for the skin booster treatment that you've done, and now we're seeing that in a topical space. So have you tried the VT Riedel shot?
No, the Riedel shot, yeah. I've actually done a lot of, full disclosure, I did do an ad for it, but that was just because actually when I was developing the BD Joseon Senstick, when we went to Korea, we had this lady come in and kind of tell us, here's what's actually like on the forefront of becoming very popular or upcoming ingredients in the Korean skincare space, and Spicule was one of them.
Yeah.
So then I looked into it, and it's a really interesting technology period. So I've done a separate video discussing that technology by itself outside of VT. Because now like Isntree has a version.
A lot of
brands
Korean
do.
brands, yeah. So I think VT Riedel shot has PDRN in it. So I think that's a mechanism where the Spicule will just like kind of like punch into your skin layers. But yeah, borderline kind of like drug claim. But I think the PDRN trend is kind of fascinating from my perspective because it's so interesting and how that would translate topically. And I think that then allowed a lot of raw material suppliers to come up with alternatives to salmon sperm source. So there's one that's coming from seaweed. There's one coming from all sorts of different plants, and there's some PDRN coming from the lab. Yeah, super fascinating to watch that space. And I think the Spicule is so fascinating too. I bought it. I didn't have the guts to try it because I heard
Which one did you buy?
300.
Oh.
Don't start there.
50.
Start with 100.
Yeah.
The 100 one was sold out.
Okay. No, like you have to start lower. And the higher the concentrations, because I can use 700 just fine, you do feel a little bit of like a prick moment. Nothing painful, but like you feel like a little bit of like, oh, what's that? I think overall the technology is really interesting. And again, in the context of even outside of VT and like how it was used prior, it's just, they're very, very microscopically small. People think they go all the way like very deep, which they don't. And the idea is they just shed naturally with skin desquamation, but they're creating microchannels that can allow for better ingredient penetration. So hopefully better benefits, but they can also be coated. So for this example, like the PDRN is coated on the spicule itself, and that way it's able to have a better channel of getting into you.
Yeah.
Which is where Leah mentions like it's a little bit of a fine line between drug and not, but
Yeah, so that's been fascinating to kind of like watch that space. I would be curious if that kind of comes over to the stateside, both the ingredient and also the spicule.
yeah. Because I mean, realistically, outside of that, topically, like what is that really doing to you? Is there a channel and means of it? Because the whole point of the injections is it's getting to like the
Inside of the skin.
correct. Whereas topically, I'm like, is it just hydrating? Is it like a peptide?
Maybe.
Collagen?
We'll need to see more data.
So with that was my time with Leah. As always, of course, I'm going to have everything for Leah linked down below. Check out our YouTube channel. If you're not, you should be following Leah, realistically. Also, whatever Leah and I talk about, feel free to leave your little 2 cents down below in the comment section and let me know who else do you want to see on the channel having these discussions. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But thank you so much for being on the channel. Any last words?
Less is more.
Less is more. Simplify. #press reset.
Yes.
Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit that
you.
subscribe button, notification bell, so that you know when I post more skincare, sunscreen, and beauty related content on my channel. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, and thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.